Hey guys, Evan from Gymaware. We're really happy to be supporting Coach DeMayo's podcast series once again. For those that don't know, our main product is Gymaware. It's the gold standard for measuring performance and implementing velocity-based training in the weight room. It excels in busy team training environments, and for many coaches, it's the Swiss Army knife of their toolkit. The Gymaware is used for athlete profiling, jump testing, fatigue monitoring, and for lifting within velocity zones. The system provides real-time feedback on individual targets, plus it's got an impressive range of leaderboards. Now, for those that are after a VBT device that's affordable, for the individual and for smaller groups, we recently released our new laser-based product, Flex. Importantly, it's been independently validated and proven to be both accurate and reliable. So if you're interested in either product, or you want to learn more about the velocity-based training and how it can help you as a coach, check out our website or contact us directly. So in the meantime, we trust you enjoy the Coach DeMayo's podcast, Outside the Rack.
The world of strength and conditioning is filled with some fantastic practitioners that are always searching for more. But more what? What are strength and conditioning coaches searching for to better their ability to prepare their athletes? Well, what about cutting-edge information? Or a place where you can find different opinions from forward-thinking coaches on what you're doing, how you're doing, and try to get feedback to be better for your athletes? Or what about a place where you'll find like-minded coaches that can provide solid coaching advice and career development for you as you progress through your career as a strength and conditioning professional? Well, this is exactly why we built the Strength Coach Network. You'll have access to exclusive monthly content on top of the sensationally active forum that we have, where you can communicate with coaches all over the world to find those answers that you're looking for to help you be a better practitioner for your athletes. So make sure you hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPs, that's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS, and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 63rd episode of Outside the Rack, brought to you by Kinetic Performance, the makers of Gymaware. In this show, we're just going to try to dive a little deeper in the minds of the top practitioners in the world of sport performance to learn a little bit more about who they actually are and how they got to where they are today. Today, we are joined by Mississippi State University's assistant strength and conditioning coach, Aaron Duvall. Aaron, thanks for being with us today, brother.
Jay, thanks for having me, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, man, ditto. It's been a little bit, since our conversation this summer about everything going on in the world and COVID and how it's impacting tracking and metrics and all the stuff you guys are building down there. But before we get into the nitty-gritty with all this, who was Aaron Duvall?
Yeah, so who is Aaron Duvall? I think personally, I am a below average weightlifter. I like to think that I'm a pretty laid back guy that professionally has just happened to meet, all the right people at the right times and has gotten a few lucky breaks and is lucky to be at his dream job at one of his dream schools right now. So, happy to be where I am and know who I know and be who I'm with.
That's awesome, man. It's always great when people find a spot that really fits for them and they hope that they can spend some time at and actually like build something at, because I think that all too often, one thing that we've all talked about is like dressing for the next job or what the job you want. But the topic that comes up in a lot of these is a lot of people don't get to live where they work because they're always worried about the next spot. And I'm stoked that things are good there and that, Mock's got a great one with her, to help keep the ship going, because it's a heck of a team.
Yeah, she's our fearless leader, man. I'm lucky to have her as a boss and a mentor. She keeps me on my toes with her caffeine fueled endeavors every day. So
I love it. Yeah, it's awesome, man. That is awesome. But listen, dude, as a guy who, is in a great spot, and, for people that don't understand, like you run a great internship program down there. You guys did a lot of stuff this summer that was really great with these young people, have been part of expanded learning for a while now. So I'm really fired up to hear about this. If you wouldn't mind, describe a learning situation that brought about an epiphany in your career?
Yeah, I think I have a couple examples. And epiphany is a really strong word, but I think that, there's a couple examples I can go into of just like things that were uh, just big learning experiences for me and just big periods of growth that I can single into like maybe one or two moments. And I'm really going to tell on myself with one of them. So I'm going on my third year here at State. This is my first full-time job, and I came here. It took a little bit, I guess, different of a path than a lot of strength coaches. So I never did a GA position anywhere. So I didn't have too much like complete oversight or team responsibility before coming here to Mississippi State. So, I did my master's online and just spent some time doing internships just anywhere I could, and got to meet a lot of really good people and work with a lot of really good staffs. And I think the one thing that I kind of limited myself with was the exposure that I didn't really get going through those internships, with really being able to communicate quite a lot with like the sport coaches and working with head coaches and the rest of support staffs. It was pretty much siloed into like just the strength conditioning aspect. So I can think of one really good example where it was I think a big just wake up moment for me, where my first summer here. So I got here in July, and one of my team assignments is the women's soccer team. So throughout that month of July, we have summer training with them, where the team is only with me. They can't have any exposure or training with the soccer coaches. And I just basically got thrown into a really good position where it's like, hey, I just get to do my job, and that's that. But because the soccer coaches weren't on campus and I didn't really get to do too much with them or get really much feedback with them, I think what I ended up doing with the girls over that summer, and we had a great summer of training for my first, I guess, experience with taking autonomy of a team. But I did a pretty poor job on just the communication and explaining the why and getting the buy-in from the sport coaches as well, because I know in their position it was a big thing. It's like they got some guy that they don't know coming in and getting their girls prepared for those guys at the time, their second season with the school. So they basically gave me a list of like, hey, this is all the stuff that we want you to do to make sure that we're ready for preseason. And it was the kind of run their fitness test every day, and do a bunch of crazy runs and stuff. I was like, we'll sprinkle some of this in there, but at the same time, I'm going to take a little bit of my own route and do my job. But I think the way that I handled it was, again, not the communication wasn't quite where it needed to be. And I remember the first conversation once the sport coaches were back on campus from recruiting in August. So after the month that I trained the girls, we sat down with them, and my plan was I was going to go over this whole thing of like, hey, like here's what I can do for you guys, and here's the stuff that we can do as we approach preseason and go into season. And one of the first words out of the head coach's mouth was, not verbatim, but something along the lines of like, man, I'm not even sure I want you working with my team. And I was just like, whoa, what? And it basically, his defense was like, I don't know anything that you've been doing with them. Like, we don't know where they're at. To an extent, like compliance wise, they're not supposed to know everything, but they also they just didn't feel like that I had kind of gotten their buy-in from a coaching side. It was just like, hey, they were assigned this new first time full-time strength coach, and he was just trying to run the show, and that's not what it was at all. So I think it really, for me, highlighted just and it almost sounds like a cliche when we talk about how important communication is, but it really kicked my ass in the sense of like, you know, needing to be a lot more proactive on the front end with communication with the other staffs outside of just the strength staff or just the athletes, but like with the support staff and with the coaches as well. You know, that's huge. So I think that was again, a big learning experience for me. It was a big period of growth for me to go into, you know, from that and then trying to essentially kind of mend the relationship and get to where I think by the end of their tenure here, we had a great relationship with those coaches, and we still keep in touch. So that ended up growing a lot from there. I know you mentioned talking about the internship that we've been able to run too, and that's something that I definitely like to take a lot of pride in. And I think we've talked before. We have it a little unique here, where we have our strength conditioning interns, and again, it's not really an epiphanous moment, if that's even a word. But one thing that when I got here, we were approached by our engineering department from campus, and you know, usually I guess as strength staffs, like we hear a lot from the kines departments, exercise science, and it was kind of funny, like being approached by the engineering department head saying like, hey, we want to work with you guys. Like, we want to give you guys help, and, you know, doing a lot of stuff with how you're, you know, monitoring and assessing and, you know, quantifying loads for your athletes. And skipping a few steps of that story, I think that what we learned out of it and how it's really helped us is, you know, we have our internship for our strength conditioning staff, but we also now have interns from the engineering department too, that help us a ton when it comes to just kind of the off field or off court side of things. And, you know, for me, as a learning experience, I think it just went to show like how useful, you know, other sides of the spectrum of education can really be for athletics. Like, I never really thought coming here that in our engineering department would be something that like really expedites a lot of the reports that I give coaches, or a lot of the testing and assessment that we do with the athletes. So that was huge, man. They've been a big help with us too.
Two really different moments that end out kind of coming back to the same sort of thought process, if you may, and that's in one way or another, just doing your job isn't necessarily enough.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, for me personally, like as I've you know, gone through these first couple years in this position, there's what I thought was like the textbook definitions of like all the responsibilities of what my position would be. And I think that as you get that autonomy or whatever responsibility that you get kind of throughout your career, at least for me, it's like I've learned that it's not just those textbook examples of like what responsibilities are. Like, it starts to grow from there. And but I think that using the resources around you too, that you may not even think about, are really important as well.
Yeah, dude. And I think that that's a great lead into the second question, because as a guy who's been open and willing, I mean, to go into another world, right? Like if you're talking engineering and things of that nature, dude, like these are professions and things of that nature where if you tried to put me in a room with these cats, I'd look like the Exorcist. My head would just start spinning all over the place. But in order to do that, you've got to be an inquisitive person who's willing to ask questions. And not just willing to ask questions, but be a person who's willing to find what the next question is. I think that that's why this question has really fired me up for this talk today. And that is, if Aaron could ask one question and he knows he would get the answer to it, what would that question be and why?
Yeah, you know, I go back and forth on that question quite a bit. Like, if I had to pinpoint one thing of like what would I want to pursue from a knowledge standpoint that would, I don't know, just kind of give me the answer that I want, or that would really help me. And not to dodge you too much, but I want to give two answers again. So the first one being more like professionally related. I think that because of the relationship that we've been able to build with different staffs, or, departments here at State, hard to articulate this into a question, but at the end of the day, like, our goal is to give the athletes, the programs, the coaches, the best product that we can possible. Putting tools in their toolbox to be successful in whatever they're doing. I think that if I could ask a question, like, in a good examples, when I didn't know how much like an engineering department could really help me do my job. So now my question is like, what else am I missing, or what else are we missing, or what boats are passing us by that we may not really know about that could really help us give our athletes that best product, or those tools in their toolbox. I think, a quote that I like is like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And the more that I feel like I've learned, the more I realize like I'm clueless. So getting to understand like, what else am I clueless about on, again, whether it be training, or involving other staffs or other departments, or using, whatever methods to give our athletes those tools. Like, what other boats are we missing that we could start putting some emphasis on, and starting to dive into to do a better job with that. I think would be like my, again, professional example of what question I would want asked. I hope that kind of makes sense.
No, 100%, man. And I'm a fan of that, because I think that, the more that you dig, the more that you uncover, the more you're going to need to take a step back. And like Charlie said in 2019, eventually it comes down to not just finding answers, but finding the questions that you didn't even know needed to be asked.
Right. Exactly, man. That's it. I guess my other, to take my work hat off for a minute, and to show my, I don't know, geek side, there was like it more of like the stoner type, like existential thoughts of like, what would be a question that I want answered. Spent a lot of my time, or free time, like watching stupid space documentaries and shitty alien Netflix series. Man, again, totally unrelated to a lot of what we've been saying. I think it'd be so cool to know, just like, we as people are stuck on our little bubble, and we're only, capable of understanding so much about like the universe. I'd love to know what else is out there, man. Are there those little green guys walking on Mars that we just can't see? Are there, is there other stuff out there? And how does everything else operate? I think getting a few questions like that answered would be really cool too.
Yes. And as someone who grew up in a Star Wars household, I think that that's something that I too would really like to know. Mostly because I'd really like to know if all these wackos that have been on these shows that said all of these things happened when they got teleported onto these ships, like, did they just eat some bad mushrooms, or did it really happen? Like, that's just what I really want to know,
Exactly, man. Because they never find like the person that's like, oh, they seem like a bright person, or like someone trustworthy or reliable. It's always,
yeah, it's never some stockbroker in Manhattan, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. But I don't know. I think that'd be cool to figure out too. But we'll let those smart guys try to figure it out for us, while I just, sit at my desk and try to figure out what other questions I can ask for my job. So
Could you imagine what Strength Coach Twitter would do if one of those people was actually a strength coach? Could you imagine just the slap fights on social media over like oh, but you don't know the context of how this person got into the spaceship, or if he even went into the spaceship, or whatever it may be. That would be, oh, that'd be great.
I'd love to see it.
Oh, that'd be great. Depending on who it was, like, or where they fall on the side. I can't believe I'm going to say it this way, but how they fall on which side of the aisle when it comes to all of these arguments that people like to pretend to have on Twitter about all this stuff. Like, it would be, I actually might scroll through that and read it. I don't read any of this other garbage, but I might actually scroll through it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I could take some time. I could waste some time going through that for sure.
No doubt. But listen, man, like, let me get you out of here on this one. Speaking of wasting time and scrolling through some stuff, you know, you guys do a lot. You give back a lot. You guys have built a lot down there, and you guys have done some really great things. But eventually, you got to take a breath and come back to zero, man. So what does Aaron do to get back to neutral? What's your escape, bro?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if my answer really qualifies as like my escape or just like my repetitive half-ass attempts to alleviate my ADD. But I feel like, you know, when we leave work, you know, we take those hats off. I find myself just being someone that goes through these like stupid phases of like fixating on like one skill or one topic where I'm like, I see a video on the internet, I'm like, oh, that looks cool, let me try to do that. And then I work on it, and then I find a point where I get stuck or can't get any better, and I get frustrated, so I move on to the next thing. I think, like, just to give a few examples of like Aaron's stupid phases of 2020, I think it started off, I tried to go into like programming and R language and software, and that didn't last very long. Got too tough for me. Then talking to several of our engineers, they were like inventing some you know, monitoring devices, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to build stuff. So I got like a little Arduino circuit board that I could. I mean, all I could do is I could make it like blink a red or blue light, but I was stoked, man. It was, that was a highlight of probably my month of February. But I think my newest thing now, fortunately, was able to just buy a house. So gonna have to hone in on my my carpentry and little household skills. So I'm gonna have to get a little bit better at those things, but that's just going to be my phase of the week, I guess. I'd say the one thing that is maybe a little strange, because I'm some guy from Louisiana, but the one thing that's always kind of stayed consistent that I find myself like waiting all year for is I love to go snowboarding, man. I grew up on the water, so my mom was a professional water skier. So we always went wakeboarding, skiing, doing stuff out on the lake. And I went on a snowboard trip, I don't know, some point when I was a kid with like our church youth group, and fell in love with it, man. I've gone every year since. So that's been that, you know, 3 or 4 days that I can go on the top of the mountains and turn my phone off and recharge and just, you know, fall down a mountain a few times. That's the best week of my year for sure.
That's rad, dude. And I think all too often people look at these and they're like, this has got to be something that you could do like any day that ends in the letter Y, or every Saturday or whatever. But I think that really what makes that super cool to me is someone who also has limited time to do things, is it's like, yeah, it can be something that's like a 3-day weekend that you just, you know, just recharge right then, and then it's like back to it. Like, that's your thing, that's what you do, and it's a blast, and that's rad, man. I'm stoked to hear that.
Yeah, it's nice being in Starkville too. Like, as much as there isn't around here, like, it's kind of nice to an extent too, because like, you know, it's easy to go find places to, you know, find recreation somehow within an hour or so, go hiking, camping or something. There's a few lakes around here, not too many people. So I feel like it's a little bit easier to unwind here than, maybe a more densely populated area. So yeah, it makes it, that's definitely one of the bonuses of being here.
It's rad, dude. Well, Aaron, man, it's great to see you. Great to hear you're doing well, man. Truly appreciate your time. This is rad.
Oh, Jay, appreciate you, man. Pleasure as always. And yeah, hope things keep going well for you guys, and best of luck as we trial through these strange times.
No doubt, man. Well, appreciate your time, buddy. We'll be in touch real soon, man. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, man.